We're ready to begin the second part of today's session. If I could have your attention, please. A little louder? Okay, thank you.
Stop yelling.
All right. All right, guys, this is it. The last call. I wanted to continue the conversation that we started earlier today around WIOA and around the business sector, business engagement, the employer engagement, business sector discussions that we had earlier with Nick and folks. We've got a fantastic panel of individuals here. I wanted to introduce Coach Lenny over here, who has been a long time workforce advocate. Very few people know this about Coach. He actually went to University of Colorado, was a linebacker, and played in professional football for 1 year. Team went belly up, not because of him. And then he went to LA Valley College and has been an instructor there since. Lenny, as you all know, it really is the epitome of workforce development within our system. He has been a leader and a champion for sector development and working with a number of different industries. I'm going to have Lenny give you a little bit of background on the different companies and activities that he's focused in on over the years, but he really has been a champion, and although he is officially retired, and talking to Roberta, he has not left the campus yet. So that's a good thing. But Lenny Schufer, come on up, Coach.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Jaime. Appreciate that. First, I'm very honored to have been asked to moderate this great panel that they have in front of you. And we hope to make it very worthwhile and productive for you, and we'll talk about that as we go on. I'll give you about a minute background on me. Like Jaime said, I've been at Los Angeles Valley College for 42 years. In the last 22 years, I've been partnering with the City of Los Angeles on different projects, and I'm really proud to say that I've done that. Also proud to have worked with many people in this room on many of those projects. So I'm glad to be here. We have in our 22 years working with the city on these projects, we work in a variety of customized trainings. And customized trainings are where you work with an employer directly and give people job opportunities with customized training being involved with the middle piece. And so we're going to talk about that today. Our program with partnership with many of the people here and organizations here, we've probably trained and opened people for over 30 retail markets across the greater Los Angeles area. We've opened 4 Target stores where we've placed all the people in a brand new Target opening. Our most recent successes and ongoing successes are with Baxter and Grifols in the biotech, which you'll hear a little bit today. We've dealt with them over 8 years or so. And over the last 10 years, something that we're real proud of in the transportation is we've had a long-standing relationship and partnership with Metro, where we've placed over 1,000 Metro bus operators with our partners. So that's a little bit about me, and what I'd like to do is give a chance for each of our panelists, and we have a series of questions here that I and Jaime and Rosa have detailed to ask the panelists, and we're going to ask them to answer these questions, but I want to make sure that today's session is productive for everybody in this room. So we're going to leave chance for everybody to ask the question. If you don't hear the answer of my staged questions to these panelists, we're going to be tough on them, make sure they get your answers later on in the program. So I think we got some good questions to ask. First of all,
Lenny, can you just share the microphone now? We're trying to get another one. So,
sure.
thank you.
See, I knew there was more to this than moderating. Okay, we'll start with Tracy.
Well, hello, good afternoon. My name is, seeing familiar faces. My name is Tracy DeFilippis, and I am with Goodwill Southern California. Everybody knows the smiling face of Goodwill. We span 3 counties, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Los Angeles. My role with Goodwill is in workforce and career development, but more specifically, I've had the pleasure of leading a manufacturing sector intermediary for the County of LA over the past year. Love to be able to tell you about some of that. I do want to give a plug for our June 28th event coming up. It's going to be a summative event of our findings over the past year. I'd love for you to come, so please connect with me so I can personally invite you and get your email. So we've done a lot of uncovering of mapping of assets and uncovering the resources in our community, all relative to manufacturing, how we can grow that base, help our manufacturers be a business-facing intermediary and serve them. Going forward even, we found so many good things out, we've connected some great dots, and we see some great progress going forward. That's my intro.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rhonda Rose. I'm with Community Career Development. We're a nonprofit. We operate 3 AJCCs, 1 in the city of Los Angeles, the Wilshire Metro Workforce Center, and 2 in the county, Compton and South LA. Some of the sectors that we're going to talk about today is biomed and healthcare, and the other one is our trade, logistics, and transportation. These are both very fast, high growth sector industries, not only in the LA region, but across the nation. And we're going to share some of the models and why these sectors are continuing to grow and why we've been so successful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Phil Starr. I know many of you. I'm the executive director at MCS, and we operate for the city of LA, the Hollywood Workforce Center, and then for the county, American Job Career Centers in Alhambra and West Covina. And we've operated over the years a number of sector initiatives, and I was just in preparing for this, thinking of what they were. They were healthcare, security. We did one with the emergency medical services, hospitality, entertainment, and our most recently funded is with Department of Labor, where we're connecting disadvantaged or underserved young adults to the IT occupations using an apprenticeship model. So that's kind of a new approach that I think is really encouraged in WIOA, is actually using apprenticeship as a vehicle to help individuals, underserved individuals attached to the labor force and career pathways. And I'll be glad to discuss that and other sectors as we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Aguirre, and I'm with Mayor Eric Garcetti's Office of Economic Development. My focus on his team is on the small business and entrepreneurship segment. One of the insights I'd like to add, this is actually my first government job. So I've owned a restaurant for 5 years. I worked for nonprofits, working with small business owners. So really try to add some insight on how you, some of my success I attribute to bringing that private sector approach to dealing with and to doing my job. And there's some lessons in there that I've learned, some processes that I've learned along the ways that I think have been very beneficial in helping me as effectively and efficiently as possible to do my job and build relationships that have resulted in some short-term successes and long-term successes as well.
That's great. Hey everybody, my name is Abraham Jenkins, or AJ, and I'm with Launchpad, CEO of Launchpad. We are a cloud technology company, and we develop a CRM platform. We're going to be talking about CRM today and how do you use that to engage with businesses. But we have a cloud platform that's built on Salesforce. For those of you who don't know, Salesforce is the global leader in CRM, and we work with about 48 state and local agencies throughout the country. Last week I was in Iowa, today I'm in LA, I'll be in Wisconsin next week, and in Indiana, and I get a chance to go out and meet with a lot of workforce folks and figure out, like, how do I get this stuff that's on a paper or on a spreadsheet and get it into my computer to actually help businesses hire people. That's what I currently do right now. My background, I used to be like many of you. I was a job developer and worked in staffing and recruiting, and I know what it's like to try to get people into jobs, and when they don't show up Monday morning explaining to the employer why they didn't, I know what that's all about. So looking forward to talking with you guys today. And I'm going to try to do this. All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Roberto Gutierrez with Los Angeles Valley College, and I've had the pleasure of being schooled by Lenny. I like telling this joke. You know, Lenny goes back so far in his football days that that's when they folded up their helmets and put them in their back pocket. I couldn't resist, Coach. Our department, for going on 22 years now, has worked collectively with many of you folks in the audience, with LACO and Goodwill and Canoga Park and Prieto. We have 4 different academies that we run on an ongoing basis. You've heard about the Metro Academy. We also have a program called LA Fellows, which is a professional development and rebranding for older adults, professionals. And today we're going to be speaking a little bit on the 2 programs on the manufacturing side. We have a Biotech Manufacturing Academy that is supported by Grifols and Baxalta, and also the academy that I manage, which is a 6-week manufacturing academy specific to both conventional and CNC machining. And very happy to be here. I want to thank the city for asking us to be part of this panel.
Okay, let's start with the questions, and then I'll ask whoever wants to start the answer can start it, and anybody else in the panel can chime in. My first question is, how do you engage schools or training institutions in developing sector-based training that will be inclusive of the underserved communities in your service delivery region? Phil? Go ahead, Phil. Oh,
I mean, I can try.
no, it's okay.
So this is a real challenge I find in workforce development, is that funders want us to do really good training and engage schools and help underserved communities reach into real jobs that have real opportunities for advancement. Schools offer the training, but often the schools and the programs have prerequisites, as they should. The programs, for example, we're now doing work in IT, and it's reasonable. The schools have certain criteria in terms of numericity, basic education, literacy. for the students. But often when we reach into those underserved communities, the participants are not really up to those levels. So that becomes the real challenge I find in negotiating with schools and getting them engaged in doing sector work is how do we prepare the community we're charged to enroll to actually benefit from the training. So one of the ways to do that is to contextualize the remediation. And that, I think, is a very good approach when speaking with a school and trying to prepare them to serve an underserved community. Let's say the issue is English or the issue is math. You know, how do we, rather than demanding all the students take a remediation class, which I think all of us have probably seen doesn't often work, rather than do that, put the remediation right into the curriculum, so that as the students are learning, they're getting that remediation and they're getting encouraged and they're seeing progress and they stick with the program. Because often one of the difficulties with underserved communities I find is getting people to stick through the program and get all the way through, get the diploma and graduate. For the schools here, when we in workforce development put someone in a program, we've enrolled them, and that usually means that 75–80%, so to speak, need to come out the other end with a job, diploma and a job. So we really need the students to get through that training. So the more we can work together to really make sure the curriculum from day one is appropriate for that group and gives them the opportunity to learn what they've missed out so far in their education, I think the better opportunity we have for success.
Anybody else would like to weigh in? I'd like to just thank you, Phil. One thing I'd like to add to that is I heard the term contextualized training. I'm a big believer in that. Every program that Los Angeles Valley College has in workforce development centers on contextualized training. I am not a big, I'm sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings, I'm not a big advocate of just basic test scores. And if you contextualize the training in English and math, which we do in all of our training programs, and you show the student the end result of a job, they're so much better learners and they learn so much faster in contextualized training. So I think that's a great point, Phil. I really believe that. Thank you. We've improved grade levels. We do a pre and a post from 3 to 5 grade levels by doing contextualized training and measuring it. Okay, my next question is, how do you approach your private sector partners in order to create partnerships? Frank?
Regarding approaching private sector partnerships, one of the things that I found that's really important, a lot of times business owners, operators of businesses, they have certain needs and immediate responsibilities, immediate criteria that's on their mind. And then on the other end, in the public sector, we have our same kind of goals, interests, and immediate criteria. I think oftentimes there's a little bit of a gap. The challenge that I see is that people will oftentimes start off these relationships feeling, well, I need a perfect fit right off the bat, or there's nothing we can do together. Where I think I'd encourage you to really kind of think of a long-term goal, even if it's just a baby step. Maybe a baby step is part of a relationship. If you meet and you build that relationship with that community partner, that private sector partner, there might not be an immediate fit right away, but there might be something else that simply I could either connect them to or highlight that they wouldn't have known. Just if you almost look at them as learners as well, the government side of it, the education, is something totally new to them. You don't assume that they know all that and everything you're talking about. And on the other end as well, I like to give this also the example. When I say there's a long-term piece to it and a short-term, it's very similar to making cold calls, and think of it in sales terms. Whereas I'll have to make 100 cold calls in order to get one person that's interested. So as you're out there meeting and talking to the private sector, you may have to make, and these statistics are very common, they're used for stockbrokers, they're used in a lot of sales training. It's simply, they'll have to go out and build that relationship. That one interested relationship might not turn into an immediate transaction. It might turn into something a year later, but you need to build those warm leads in order to fill and find those transactions. I always like to highlight, I have a little bit of an education background, so always when I teach a little sales and marketing, I like to highlight that show, Pursuit of Happiness, or the movie with Will Smith. You might remember in the movie where it's a great movie, great story, but in there he's given a lesson about how he became a stockbroker. And it was about calling, making those contacts, going out. He went to the football game with one of his contacts, went all the way to the top, to the head of General Electric, I think, or one of the companies. Didn't know where it was going to lead, but at the very least, he made some relationships, made friends. Didn't turn anything to right away, but it turned into something later by simply maintaining. And then simply with that is don't just fall off. Don't just fall off if there's nothing there. By creating the partnership, part of it is to tie into what AJ would talk about, having some kind of system, mechanism to manage all those relationships, whether it's a Salesforce, whether it's a simple email database. Being able to track that and remind someone, even if you haven't touched base with them for a year, programs such as Salesforce, well, you can put in those notes, reminders, and almost pick up from where you left off a year ago to find out where a little bit about the relationship. So really kind of adding a little bit of that personal touch and being in it for the long term.
Frank, let me ask you a follow-up. I just wrote something down. How do you measure success when you're engaging with your business, private business clients? How do you measure this success?
You know, so I would measure success as if a private sector client just calls me or reaches me just for a simple question, I would count that as a success. It doesn't have to be necessarily that I solve their problem, but even just if I directed them in the right way. Knowing that they're coming, knowing that to them, I live and work in this really confusing world that doesn't make any sense. So to be able to shed a little light is a success. One, because I feel I'm giving back before I'm asking them for anything, or I may never ask them for anything, but I feel like I'm giving back and helping someone out. So that the other success is really how do am I giving something that's relevant to them? Is there a learning experience that we're putting on my educator hat? If I'm going to reach out to a general communication, general email blast, am I at least offering something that will be worth their time to read my email, to read my communication? Do they feel that they're being engaged?
Pretty good for a first governmental job, huh? Anybody else? AJ, want to comment?
Yeah, I just want to add to that, and I think Frank, I always like sitting next to Frank because he just inspires me, and I like the fact that you came from a restaurant, and I hope you have some friends you can hook me up with to get free meals or something, so you still know those folks. But I like Frank because he comes, he does have that private sector experience, and coming from the private sector, still in the private sector, I think the biggest challenge that I see, and I'm not calling out anybody in the audience, I'm just speaking from everybody that I talk to in workforce development, is so few folks, particularly at levels of leadership, have had deep private sector experience or still maintained that level of private sector relationship. And what I mean by that is you've got to be out meeting with CEOs all the time. You have to be talking to CEOs. You've got to be talking to executives. And oftentimes, we hear about let's get a forum, let's get a meeting together, let's pull together leaders, and oftentimes it's folks from HR, and we'll have this big meeting, and then we fold up our briefs and we walk out and nothing happens. And like businesses, they hate that. They absolutely, and that like reaffirms the stigma of government to businesses and employers. I learned this again firsthand. Again, I came from private sector staffing, and we earned our keep by placing people in jobs. We placed someone in a job, we made money. So we were incentivized to place people in jobs. And recently I was up in San Francisco. We're doing a big project with the city of San Francisco, and it was interesting. They asked me, they said, AJ, would you like to come and actually meet with some of our employers? And I said, are you sure you want to bring me into that conversation? And they said, no, we'd love to have you come and meet with some of our employers and talk to them about the workforce programs. We ended up meeting with Wells Fargo, we met with executives from Bank of America, we met with executives from CVS, and it was really interesting. One of the things I asked them is I said, how well are these programs, that San Francisco is doing? And they said, they've got some great programs that are helping people. We need, for example, CVS was moving into San Francisco. They were trying to compete with Walgreens. They were opening up a store a week practically. And the biggest thing they said is, you guys are graduating people out of these short-term training programs. We're probably they're hiring 100% of the people that are coming out of that. They could hire 10 times more people from those programs. So their question to the government was, how can you take this program that's successful and scale it? Because right now I could give you 20 more positions. So the biggest thing that I try to say with workforce folks is, you guys should be meeting out. Who here met with an employer this week? Raise your hand. It should be everybody. We all should be meeting with employers all the time, because at the end of the day, they're our customer, right? That's that dual customer model. And the more that we can be engaging with employers, and especially who here is meeting with the CEOs of these companies or the local managers, right? Those are the folks we need to be meeting with, because those are the folks that make the decisions. And if you meet with an HR person, they can't change the rule that they can hire someone with a background. But you meet with that CEO, the CEO can change the rule and say, you know what, I like your value proposition. We're not hiring people fast enough. We're going to change that rule. So I just, the thing is, be private sector minded 100% of the time. You guys know the workforce system. Just be private sector minded as much as you can.
One quick comment. I've had the good fortune of being the training and education liaison with the San Fernando Valley chapter of the National Tooling and Machining Association for 20 years. And I go to trade shows. I go to trade association meetings. And these are the folks that come speak at our graduation. These are the folks that come and open up their facilities for tours. These are folks that attend our graduation and hire our students. So I can't express enough what AJ said. You got to get out and meet with the private sector.
Bill?
I'd like to add one thing that AJ brought up, and that is working with HR, because it is really challenging. I know in a lot of our initiatives, HR does legitimately have both a gatekeeper and compliance functions. And in our initiatives, we're working with populations often that do not gel well with those functions. They're often what those functions are trying to. So you really need to have HR in the loop, but in such a way that you have the buy-in of executive CEO type management, or else that'll be where your program will die.
Another perspective. So if you can't meet with employers, meet with someone who can. So Goodwill, I represent Goodwill Southern California, we are a service provider and we meet with employers all the time. So in just a different perspective, I appreciate all that's been said. There is a little bit of fatigue going on with employers and too many folks reaching out to them. So again, it's about knowing who's who in the community, who does what, who does it well, who's connected, and who you can partner with and get some of that inside stuff. Of course, I job developed for years. I know what it's like to get in the back door and knock on doors and not be responded. I've done that, I've done all that. But there are organizations, some CBOs and nonprofits out there like ourselves that are meeting with employers. So meet with us. We'd love to meet with you. I love adult education. It must endure forever. Love that. Just wanted to give you that.
Okay, Tracy, why don't you hang on that?
Okay.
I'm gonna have you, I think you're gonna be able to answer this next question. But I wanna, on my staff at Los Angeles Valley College, we have one rule that we use with our providers and also with our businesses. We want to be invited back. So it's like a guest. Somebody comes to your house and makes a mess of your house, they don't get invited back. So we want to be invited back. Sometimes you have to do things that are not profitable or not beneficial right away, but if you're invited back. So that's a general rule we keep. So, all right. The next question is, what practices have you employed to ensure that the demand side of workforce development is being served. Tracy, we talked about that.
That was a setup. I appreciate that. So just let me talk to you for a minute about intermediaries. Does anyone know what an intermediary is? Have you heard the term? Too much, too little? Anyone? Show me a hand. Have you heard of intermediaries? There's a few hands out there. Okay. So what do they do? Anybody? Anybody?
They act as an intermediary between two parties.
They do this.
The brain power.
So we do a little bit of that. We do a bringing together, we're making goulash, right? But we have a very deliberate and intentional approach to it. So I do represent manufacturing. I love manufacturing. I've had 10 years in manufacturing myself, and I did work in public education, and so I have a personal affinity to the sector. LA County is a powerhouse for manufacturing. Southern California employs more than 800,000 jobs in manufacturing. Many of these employers are less than 250 employees. Okay, so smaller, a little smaller than you might imagine. I'm not really sure what you're imagining. Well, what we have done to engage the sector and to begin to develop some practices is really go long and deep. We've been blessed by being a partner of the County of LA for a project over this past year, so we're funded to go out and do some reconnaissance work. We were funded to develop some skill gap analyses and find out, where they lie, what do you need, what's not happening, getting out and talking to a whole lot of employers. And some of you were at my meetings because we've had quite a few meetings over the past year, and we've been collecting a lot of data. So data is kind of important to our work. There's not a person here that can't say data is not important to what you do. It drives a lot of what we do. And we were developing some surveys and running surveys, and I'll tell you, it's probably easier to navigate the LA freeway system without GPS than it is to get an employer to take your survey, right? Not easy, so not easy. But we've managed, and we've been developing relationships. So I'm telling you this because employers are desperate. They are absolutely at wit's end desperate for workforce. And if we don't somehow figure out how to get ourselves corralled up and start aligning some stuff, we are all going down, okay? It's, I sometimes like to just be the voice of reality check. This is not doom and gloom, okay? I'm really an idealist and a realist, but on a positive note, we can do this. It may take some time, but we can.